Here's your daily news roundup from 97.9 WGBW.
From the 97.9 WGBW newsroom, I'm Connie Fellman with this local news update. We've made it through the first two winter storm systems this week, but it looks like Mother Nature has saved her best for last. If you have any travel plans for Sunday, you might want to reschedule. The National Weather Service is calling for near impossible travel conditions, with 1 to 2 feet of snow possible and blizzard-like conditions. It's a good idea to call ahead wherever you're thinking of going this weekend. Winter storm warnings and weather advisories have been issued, and cancellations are already pouring in. In fact, funeral services for former Packers president and CEO Bob Harlan have been pushed back by a week due to the incoming storm. The celebration of life will now take place on Monday, March 23rd. Fans are invited to the Lambeau Field atrium for a public memorial service from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Visit Packers.com for information on parking and other details. Harlan, who was with the Packers for nearly 4 decades, died March 5th at age 89. People living on the shores of Lake Winnebago are keeping a close eye on the weather as mountains of ice are starting to creep a little too close to home. Literally. Ice shoves are piling up on the west shore this year, higher than many say they've ever seen before. Ice shoves happen in spring when warmer temps start to melt the ice on the lake. Warmer weather earlier this week, combined with gusty winds, create the perfect conditions for ice shoves. In video of Lake Winnebago people have shared online, you can see and hear the massive piles of ice, some taller than the houses they're threatening, being pushed further and further onto shore. Once on land, ice shoves stay put until warmer temps melt them back into the lake. But according to the National Weather Service, that's at least a week away, with plenty of snow, wind, and cold to get through first. The road to a state title for girls basketball runs through Green Bay this weekend. Hundreds of players and thousands of fans are expected at the Rush Center for the 50th WIAA State Girls Basketball Tournament. Organizers say the milestone is a big moment for all girls' sports, coming at a time when women's basketball is surging in popularity. The 50-year anniversary theme will be celebrated all weekend. Organizers say WIAA plans to honor past girls players, coaches, and officials, including women from the inaugural 1976 season. An exhibit on display at Discover Green Bay highlights the history of the tournament. CEO Brad Toll says the event will have about a $2.2 million impact on the area. All those visitors traveling back home on Sunday will be facing some tough driving conditions. Local forecasters expect a foot or more of snow to fall, with the storm system moving through starting Saturday night, going all the way to Monday. Winds could be approaching blizzard-like conditions on Sunday, according to the National Weather Service. Details coming up in the forecast. The U.S. Department of Education wants to know if a school district in northwest Wisconsin broke any laws by letting transgender students use the girls' restrooms. Federal officials say the review at the New Richmond district in St. Croix County will focus on, quote, access to intimate facilities based on gender identity, not biological sex, unquote, and whether that's against the law. A year ago, the same agency looked into a complaint from Green Bay schools. With news at the top and bottom of the hour all day and on demand anytime at WGBW.FM, I'm Connie Fellman, 97.9 WGBW News.
For Civic Media News, I'm Lisa Hale. The conflict in Iran has Wisconsin connections. Members of the Wisconsin National Guard with troops from Oshkosh and Milwaukee have been deployed to Kuwait and Iraq since May of 2025. The F-35 jets stationed with the Wisconsin Air Guard in Madison have not been activated as of this week. One student was arrested for making threats that prompted a northeast Wisconsin school to close this week. The Neenah School District was notified Tuesday about social media posts alleging a potential safety threat at Neenah Middle School. To protect student safety, classes at the middle school were held virtually on Wednesday. No other schools in the district were closed. Neenah Police Chief Aaron Olson said the student responsible has been arrested, and the chief is recommending felony charges of making terrorist threats. No details about the student have been released except that he is a male. According to the latest Marquette Law School poll conducted in mid-February, Wisconsin's registered voters have a negative opinion of how the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has been enforcing immigration laws. 56% of those polled disapproved and only 44% approved. But poll director Charles Franklin said the divide really shows a split down party lines.
There's been a lot of talk that the events in Minneapolis would change the country's opinions. I think it probably does change independents some, but it's certainly not evaporating support for ICE among Republicans.
Among Republicans, 87% approve of how ICE is doing its job, while 76% of independents and 97% of Democrats disapprove. The latest Marquette poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.3. I'm Lisa Hale, Civic Media News. There's a possible new name in the gubernatorial race on the Republican side. Waupun Mayor Ron Bishop says he's considering a run because Republicans need a new message and, quote, someone who will cheerlead for Wisconsin like Tommy Thompson did, end quote. Bishop has been critical of Congressman Tom Tiffany for rejecting the 2020 election results and says voters are tired of Washington politics. Bishop plans to make a final decision after exploring if he can raise the funds for a statewide campaign. Proposed legislation in the Wisconsin State Senate would restore some legal protections for individuals who provide aid to someone suffering from an overdose. Civic Media's James Kelly has that story.
The bill is currently being considered by the State Senate Committee on Mental Health, Substance Abuse Prevention, and Children and Families. If passed into law, an individual who calls 911 for someone during an overdose would be immune from prosecution and a revocation of their parole, probation, or extended supervision for drug possession or drug-related materials. Those protections previously existed under Wisconsin Act 33, which was passed into law in 2017. Act 33 also included the expanded protections for individuals who were on parole, probation, or extended supervision, but the expanded protections were temporary and expired in 2020. This bill would restore those protections permanently. Lawmakers say the goal is to encourage people to call for help immediately to save lives without fear of negative consequences. For Civic Media News, I'm James Kelly.
A senator from Wisconsin says she's opposed to Brad Schimmel continuing as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin when his temporary appointment expires this month. Tammy Baldwin said she's concerned about political partisans filling the justice system. Now, the U.S. Attorney General positions require Senate approval, but President Trump appointed Schimmel to be the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. Interim appointments are limited to only 120 days. Baldwin said, quote, sometimes it's hard, but getting the right person who will uphold the rule of law, not pledge loyalty to the president, is more important than ever, end quote. A final federal permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers clears the way for construction to start on Enbridge's Line 5 relocation project. Civic Media's Maddie Schaefer reports.
The new 41-mile segment will move the pipeline around the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Reservation. In a statement, Enbridge says crews will employ more than 700 union workers and expects to spend millions on construction-related projects in Ashland, Bayfield, and Iron counties. The company adds Line 5 supplies crude oil and propane to 10 refineries, serving millions across the Midwest and Great Lakes region. Environmental groups argue the new route would cross roughly 185 waterways and impact more than 100 acres of wetlands. They say those wetlands are critical to wild rice beds, fish habitat, and the broader Lake Superior watershed. For Civic Media News, I'm Maddie Schaefer.
A bill that could open Wisconsin highways to self-driving cars has cleared its first hurdle at the state capitol. The Senate Transportation Committee voted 3-2 to advance the plan. It would create a board to test and regulate the vehicles and to make sure companies are liable for any damage or injuries. Supporters see it as a way to improve safety and mobility. Motorcycle advocates warn it could lead to more crashes. For Civic Media News, I'm Lisa Hale. For news anytime, visit our website at civicmedia.us.
A Packers running back heads to Seattle. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. NFL, the Packers decided not to keep running back Emmanuel Wilson after 3 years. Within hours, Wilson signed a 1-year contract worth $2.1 million with the Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks. I asked Wilson at the end of last season how he was dealing with fewer opportunities to play in Green Bay.
I mean, I still got that confidence, whether they give me the ball a lot. If they don't, hey, I'm still going to go out there and do what I do.
NBA, the Bucks head to Atlanta after losing last night to the Heat in Miami. 112-105. They'll play the Hawks tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. The Badgers continue in the Big Ten tournament against the Fighting Illini today after beating Washington 85-82. Greg Gard says they made some mistakes that could have cost them that game.
We did a lot of things that we can't repeat, but we give Washington credit. I mean, they were obviously playing desperately, but we didn't get rattled.
That's Wisconsin head coach Greg Gard. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. A few mixed showers possible this morning, but that's not the main story. The main story is the wind. Wind advisory in effect, gusts as high as 45 miles per hour, highs in the upper 30s. However, it will feel much colder than that when you factor in the wind.
That's your Green Bay News Roundup from 97.9 WGBW. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And find more news anytime at WGBW.FM.